There's an incredible range of people attending the Rivers of Emotion Symposium today. Noongar elders, historians, artists, photographers, sailors, people who have served in defence, representatives of local government, academics, diverse community groups, some sporting groups, representatives of cultural institutions, and those who have contributed for many decades to our sense of belonging and our sense of place.
So my name is Sue Broomhall, and I'm a historian at the Australian Research Council Centre of Excellence for the History of Emotions. And today we're here to explore the emotional history of the rivers of our region. The rivers have been known by many names: Nala Wern Kiep, Kiep Wern, Durbel Yerrigan, Jagaro Bilia, Svarte Svan Rivière, La Fleuve du Cygne, Swan River, and Canning River. According to the Noongar tradition, the rivers were formed by the Woggle, the serpent, and embody vital and ongoing cultural meaning for the Noongar community. The rivers, of course, determine the location of Western Australia's first 4 settlements, including the Swan River's 3 first towns. They provide first transport and communication corridor. They demonstrate evidence of changing livelihood and lifestyles and sustenance, of innovation and changes in technology and industry. The rivers are also significant for providing a home to rare and priority flora listed on national and international registers and for archaeological discoveries. They're used for passive and active sporting events and recreation, including international sporting events such as the Avon Descent. And finally, they reflect notions and understandings of personal, social and environmental well-being and health. So what is this project all about?
Rivers of Emotion is a Your Community Heritage project funded by the Department of Sustainability, Environment, Water, Population and Communities. The project explores the emotional histories of Perth's rivers and allows the community to upload memories and stories, as well as soundscapes, landscapes, visual, oral and emotionscapes. The outcomes from this project will be available online to the public and will also inform an interpretation plan for heritage trails in the Swan and Canning River Park. The Rivers of Emotion web portal encourages everyone connected to the rivers to contribute to the understanding of their value to the community. I would like to acknowledge 2 contemporary contributors who I suspect are here in spirit today. Both have left us with valued legacies. Artist Shane Pickett, whose passionate and dynamic painting of Wagga we feature prominently in our project, and Professor David Dolan AM, who was instrumental in guiding the framework and intention for much of our initial work. It's important too to acknowledge in this forum the South West Aboriginal Land and Sea Council's recent document, Swan and Canning Rivers Iconic Trails Project, Living Culture, Living Land and Its People. And I quote that both the Swan and Canning Rivers, the Durbel Yerrigan and Jalgaro Bilia, have a strong Noongar connection and epitomise sense of place values for the Noongar people. The significance of these rivers cannot be underestimated, nor should it be understated. The spirit of the river system is the running soul of the Noongar people. The Rivers of Emotion project makes available a web portal for all the community to share its emotional connections to the river. As a community, we can better understand each other through the ways we value the rivers, whether linked to one of the world's oldest cultures or experiencing it for the very first time as a visitor. Our reflective threads about this watercourse can at once unravel us and entangle us in cultures here and on the other side of the world, with emotional consequences. So why the National Trust and the Centre for the History of Emotions running this project? Well, Perth's rivers have revealed a bit of a new flow since 2008. There's a new momentum. And with this, a fresh framework of potential literacy and capacity for understanding our riverscape and also ourselves. The National Trust is committed to the conservation and interpretation of WA's heritage. We are a trust for the government and for the community. And the Trust's work has included the development of a statement of significance for the Swan and Canning River Park, identifying heritage sites and values natural, Aboriginal and historic, key themes, maps, and a UNESCO-based approach which considers that while individual places along the rivers have specific heritage value, outstanding value attaches to the overall landscape as it has evolved over time. Heritage audits have been based on existing lists and registers, including state registers, municipal inventories, the DIA Aboriginal Sites Register, and natural heritage registers. The initial project considered the top end of the river, from Windam Bridge to Middle Swan Road. 18 locations were highlighted during this report. 68 Aboriginal sites were highlighted and 131 historic sites were highlighted. Consultation with the Noongar people connected to this part of the river was undertaken, and they spoke of spiritual links and practices, with the broader community attending workshops, and we also contributed through an audit of oral histories from the libraries. There were three overarching themes that have emerged from that first statement of significance. They were the river of life, which focused on the well-being of the river, of the vegetation and the creatures, of the spiritual well-being of the Noongar community through appropriate treatment of significant places, and of the wider community's well-being through connections with nature and the preservation of community heritage. The second theme is called the power of the river. So our rivers have determined the landscape, the qualities of the landscape have influenced diet and food production, land grants along the river, and even the clay deposits have influenced the look of our built environment. The third theme is sustainability, and it explores notions of custodianship versus exploitation, encompasses the changing treatment of the rivers, and looks at notions of caring and respect for the rivers. And our program and our speakers reflect these major themes today. In 2011, the National Trust undertook an audit of heritage values, natural, Aboriginal and historic, for the remainder of the rivers within the boundaries of the Swan Canning River Park for the Swan River Trust. It involves 17 of the 21 local government authorities bordering the rivers, and almost 500 heritage sites were identified during this process. The context for this project and the rivers has been and still is complex. At the time of writing, both the Heritage of Western Australia Act 1990 and the Aboriginal Heritage Act 1972 were under review, while the South West Aboriginal Land and Sea Council was in a process of negotiation with the state government to resolve 6 Noongar native title claims over Perth in the southwest. It's an emotional time in the Swan and Canning Rivers landscape. This work, along with the Rivers of Emotion project, will contribute to the social values of our rivers and inform the interpretation plan for the Swan and Canning River Park. It's been an emotional trail that has lasted 4 years and more than 40,000 all at once.
So why is the Centre for the History of Emotions involved? The Australian Research Council Centre of Excellence for the History of Emotions, Europe 1100 to 1800, which I'll now just call the Centre because it takes so long, was formed in 2011 and brings together leading historians, psychologists, musicologists, art, philosophy and literary scholars to study the emotional life and meanings of medieval, Renaissance and Enlightenment Europe. This was a pivotal period in European history in which Europeans began to explore the world, with deep and abiding consequences for the interactions of peoples, for the development of societies, and the exploitation of resources that we see today. Our centre studies how European emotional understandings shaped their expectations of the new environments they encountered and their assumptions about the peoples that they met, including here in what became known as Australia. These emotional encounters are part of a long history that underpinned lives lived around the rivers since British settlement, the sorts of activities that the river has become used for, and the stories and experiences that have come to the fore in the interpretation of the rivers thus far. The Dutch, the French, the British explorers who came to assess the Australian landscape brought with them their own emotional feelings and connections to waterways and rivers that they knew from Europe. And with those eyes and feelings, they assessed these rivers as resources and as sites of beauty, and therefore made decisions about whether or not settlement was viable. Likewise, European observations of how Indigenous groups interacted with the riverscape shaped their often misguided perceptions of Indigenous culture and have left a damaging legacy that is only now being recognised and repaired. How well the emotional relationships of diverse migrant communities who have also made the region their home have been integrated into meanings and uses of the rivers also reflect the kind of society that has been developed in West Australia. So as such, our centre focuses on how emotions make history, how they define the societies we live in, and how they shape our sense of well-being. In this project, emotions form an important and an innovative lens through which the many experiences, many diverse stories, memories, images, sounds, and feelings about the riverscape can be shared. Our emotional engagement with the rivers may help us to find common ground to care for and interpret the rivers today and into the future. So what is this day, this community symposium, trying to achieve? Today, we want to use emotions as a framework for thinking about the rivers and our relationships to and feelings about them. As Gina has said, the Rivers of Emotion project has built a web portal to which everyone can contribute. We'll be explaining that later in the program. The portal enables people to upload memories and stories, as well as soundscapes, landscapes, visual, oral, emotionscapes, to become part of the future interpretation of our rivers. By tagging content to specific emotions and locations in the riverscape, the web portal can also create emotional maps of the river through time that help us to understand emotional hotspots, points of tension, or shared feelings about particular locations. The portal will capture a snapshot of community perceptions, past and present, linked to our riverscapes. All of your stories and your feelings about this environment are important, and everybody has a story to share.
So why have you been invited? Basically because you've got some wonderful things to share with us, and they are very valued. And because you're all representatives of diverse communities who can encourage others to contribute to this. You're representatives of cultural institutions, social and sporting societies, and people with diverse stories yourselves from across different decades, with memories and visual and oral traditions, and we basically want you to tell your friends.
So concretely, what are we going to do today? You'll see, hopefully, the program in front of you. On every table there should be a larger A4 program. If you haven't got a copy, please feel free to grab one now. And there's also the glossy Rivers of Emotion booklet. Please do take a copy of each of those documents. If you have a look at the program, today you'll see that we're welcoming speakers who bring at once unique but also universal perspectives on Derbarl Yerrigan and Jalgaro Bilia, the Swan and Canning Rivers. Our speakers' emotional connections are expert and personal, across time and age, across culture and natural heritage. In each of our themed sessions, we'll commence with 2 inspiring speakers from diverse communities across our region. And we hope they will inspire you to hear and exchange your own stories during our breakout sessions. We hope you'll use this time today to think of others whom you can tell about the Rivers of Emotion website and web portal. And we ask that you use your networks to inform others of this exciting opportunity to contribute to future interpretations of Perth's iconic riverscape. We're grateful to everybody who's attending today for giving up your time and for participating in this process, and we do hope that you'll enjoy the experience. Okay, so we'll move now. We're a little bit ahead of schedule, which is probably good. Yeah, on to theme 1, which is Rivers of Life and Wellbeing. So this is our first theme to think about this morning, and considers wellbeing in all its senses, wellbeing that's drawn from or flowing to, or simply of the rivers themselves and their own health. And today I'd like to welcome Bev Port Louie to speak first to us. Bev was born in Perth in Whadjuk country. She's the eldest of 7 siblings. She's a mother to 4 and a grandmother to 15 and a great-grandmother to 7. Bev has worked in many areas of government, including housing, welfare and justice. She's a member of the Aboriginal Advisory Committee with the West Australian Museum. Please, everybody, welcome Bev to speak to us first this morning.